Okay, as you've been told today, the purpose of today's webinar is essentially to just give you the basic overview of the Dynamics GP Smartlist functionality. My name is Shaun and I'm a Dynamics GP consultant here at Nolan Business Solutions, and I'm going to take you through the Smartlist functionality within Dynamics GP, just a basic overview and summary on how to use it, how it works, and basically just simple functionality, just to give you an idea on how it works. Okay, so as I mentioned, the agenda for this webinar is the basic Smartlist features and navigation, using the standard Smartlist that Dynamics actually provides for you, and create and modify the Smartlist, and the export to Excel functionality. Okay, so I'm going to just take you through to Dynamics. So now I'm in Dynamics GP. This is Dynamics GP 2015. In older versions, the Smartlist functionality was quite limited, so you could only view the Smartlist in Dynamics. You couldn't really export them to Excel or create or amend or modify existing Smartlists, because their functionality was only added in a later version of Dynamics, which could be from 2013 onwards. So if you're in an older version like Dynamics 2010 or 10 and below, some of this functionality won't be available, so you'd have to upgrade to a later version of Dynamics, like 2015 or 2016. Okay, so to start with, the Smartlist functionality exists basically within the Microsoft Dynamics GP menu option at the top of your Dynamics screen. Not everybody will have access to this the GP menu, which is obviously a security permissions option that would need to be given to you by your power user or whoever is in charge of allocating roles and security profiles or access to this type of thing within GP. So there is a security role for Smartlists, and it's actually called Smartlist. So basically, your admin user or whoever's in charge of allocating or giving security access within Dynamics GP would have to allow you or give you access within the user security section, basically ticking the Smartlist security role against your particular user record. Now, if you struggle with that, you can contact our support or send us an email, and we could assist you with getting that done for you. So I'm not going to go through that at the moment because this is just a basic overview on how the functionality works. So if we start with going into the actual Smartlist section within Dynamics, if I just open that up, hopefully everyone can see that. If I just minimize my... Okay, so within this screen here, we can see on the left, split out our Dynamics GP modules, or series as Microsoft call them. So if we expand financial, for example, you can see there's an account summary, account transactions, and the various other options in there. And if I expand accounts, and if I click that little icon there, it will show me the existing current Smartlist that Dynamics GP supplies for financial accounts. Now, every series, if you are familiar with Smartlist already and you're currently using them, every series have their own existing Smartlist that Dynamics provides. So a good starting point when you are creating or modifying Smartlist is to just grab one of the existing Smartlists and you can amend it, modify it, or you can actually copy it by when you're creating a new Smartlist. You can say I want to use this Smartlist as my template basically, which I'll show you in a bit. So if I were to look at this payable transactions Smartlist here, so if I click payables, so this is just showing me a list of payable transactions. Okay, so I could use the standard search on that and it will allow me to choose the column I want to search by, and I could use whatever column is available within the Smartlist. So this search criteria, if I just close that quickly, will only show me the columns that are in the Smartlist already. So if I needed to search by a column that doesn't exist in this Smartlist, you'd have to modify the Smartlist to add columns to it. So you'd have to click on the modify function and you can basically add columns to this Smartlist and you can name it. The best thing is to just save the modified Smartlist as a new name so you don't overwrite your existing Smartlist. So in this example we could use the search function and we can click on the search and we can choose a field. Let's say vendor ID, and we say vendor ID contains A, for example, and if I click OK, it will show me a list of all the transactions where the vendor ID contains A. Okay, so that's just a basic overview on how the search functionality works. And what's nice about the Smartlist functionality in the later versions of GP is that any Smartlist that you export to your screen here with search criteria and whatever columns, you can just click on the Excel button at the top and Dynamics GP will export that entire Smartlist based on your search criteria or whatever criteria you've put in columns you've decided you wanted to add, and will export it with column headings as well to an Excel spreadsheet. So it's quite neat, and if you wanted to do some further formatting on that or formulas or use that as a basis for a master worksheet and base other worksheets off it using weird and wonderful formulas, you could do that using this. So it's quite handy in that aspect. Okay, so, and this is a standard Excel sheet. You could save it as an Excel file to whatever name you want and then use it however you wish. Okay, so as I mentioned before, you can modify Smartlists. So if you wanted to modify an existing Smartlist, so in our example here we've got a list of transactions. So if I just go to a list of vendors, would be an easy one maybe. So if I click on my the asterisk one is basically the default Smartlist within that section. So it's got an asterisk next to it. So that means this is the default one, and it will just display a list of vendors with the name and basic address information and a couple of other fields. So if I wanted to add more details to this, so I want to see the balance potentially in this. I might want to see maybe address line number 3 or maybe country in there. So I could, with this Smartlist displayed, I can click on the modify option at the top left and it will come up with a screen where you could see all the possible fields you could potentially add to the Smartlist. So you could see there's quite a lot. These are all the fields that are to do with vendors or suppliers within Dynamics that you can actually display. Now, the display option on the display column here with the tick option doesn't necessarily mean it's going to display in the screen. The confusing aspect of this is it's actually the default tick option that you tick to actually get it to display in your smart list. So if I tick address number 3, I tick the default there, and then I click save. Now, if I click save and I save it to the same item name, it will save the default, this change to the default smart list. But I want to change the smart list to, let's say, vendors-SDS, my initials, and I save that there. Actually, so if I just move my, okay, so I've now added address number 3, and as you can see, I don't have that much details in it. So if I modify it again and add, maybe, do we have the, just looking for the balance. Let's add the credit limit. Just save that in there. So you can add the credit limit field, and as before, you can export that to Excel. You could also click on the columns option at the top, and you can actually change the order at which that displays. So if you wanted your, let's say, country before my zip code, and if I add that, it would change the order at which the columns. So you can click on the columns, and then you can change the order at which these columns display. So let's just say I wanted the credit limit option to column to appear right at the front. I could use my columns, and I could move my credit limit right to the front, and you can do that. Okay, so again, I could go to any of the existing ones, smart lists, and then click modify, and as I did before, you can find the field that you want to add, and you just click on the default option there. Make sure the display is also ticked, and you can save it, and it would add that to your smart list as a column. Okay, so if that's how you would modify existing smart lists. So if you wanted to create a new smart list, there's a number of ways you can create a new smart list. You could do it in a more technical way. If I click on new here, there's actually 3 or 4 ways you can create new smart lists. You could use an existing smart list, and you can say, I want to use the details from an existing smart list, and I want to just tick the fields that I want, and I want to call it Shaun's smart list, or whatever you want to call it, and you could save that. Or you could use a actual table from Dynamics. So if you were familiar with the actual table structure of Dynamics GP, and you knew exactly which table the payable transactions or the receivable transactions or nominal or financial transactions reside, you could actually go directly to that table, and you can say, I would like to use that table and display the fields from that table. That's up to you. There are a few more things that you need to do in able to have access to the Dynamics GP tables through SmartList Builder. So if you did want to get into the detail of that and actually start creating SmartList using tables and SQL scripts and things like that to be more complicated, then you can contact our support, and we can assist you guys with how you can actually get that to work and how you can actually see the Dynamics tables. But I'm going to basically start off with something basic and just use an existing smart list, and we're going to create a new smart list from an existing one to make it easier. So I'm just going to call my smart list ID that. So the Smartlist ID is just a unique ID you give in the Smartlist, so Dynamics can save it and keep it so you don't overwrite another Smartlist. So it asks you for a Smartlist ID. Smartlist name is the name that's going to appear here. So if I say Shaun transactions or something, it's going to say Shaun transactions here as a folder type thing. And then item name is just whatever you want to give the Smartlist name as it appears in an Excel export on the actual worksheet name. So if I say Smartlist name is, we're going to say GP webinar, and I'm going to choose the product. Obviously the product is going to be Dynamics GP, and I'm going to say it's going to be from my purchasing, my series or module from purchasing. Obviously you could choose sales or financials depending on the transactions you wish to, transactions or the data you wish to display in your Smartlist. So if I choose purchasing, and where it says tables here is actually where we're going to click on the little plus sign, and this is where you can actually tell the Smartlist Builder, I wish to use a Dynamics GP table or an existing Smartlist or a SQL Server table or a SQL script. Now this option is the easiest to use and is the one that you can use straight off the bat, so you don't need permissions or special privileges to use the Smartlist option. But the other options you actually need permissions to the tables, and as I said before, it gets a little more complicated if you want to use that those three options, but it allows you more scope. So if you are familiar with the structure of GP, you could create a great SQL view that consolidates 10 tables into a single script. Yep, the SQL script is the one for you, and be able to give you a whole lot of a lot more detail. However, if you choose the Smartlist option, and it gives you all your existing Smartlists. So a lot of the time this is good enough. So if you wanted just to create a Smartlist of customer addresses or customers, or in my case it's going to be payable transactions, so I could scroll down here and I can find, where is my payable transactions? There we go. I can find my payable transactions. I'll click Save, and it will take the payable transactions Smartlist and show me all the existing fields from that payable transaction Smartlist that I wanted to add. Okay. You could also add multiple Smartlists or multiple tables. However, when you do that, if I show you, it will ask you, let's get the supplier list up here. That's just as an example. So if I go vendors, it will ask you, well, how does this vendor Smartlist link to the payable one? So you'd have to go and figure out what is the link. So in this case, it's most likely vendor ID. I'll just show you how it works. So if you click vendor ID and you click Save, so it will basically link the payables transaction Smartlist to the vendors, and will consolidate all but the information or the fields of both, and you can choose the information of both. Obviously you need to be careful with this, because if you don't link properly you could show duplicate information, or it could show 10,000 rows instead of 100 rows. Okay, so of course I'm just going to for now show you the payables transactions, and if I just tick random fields here, I'm not going to try and be clever and just tick more fields so we can see what it shows. At the top here I've got a restrictions option, and you can insert restrictions if you want. So you can say, I would like the transaction amount let's try and find it. Current transaction amount to be greater than, let's say, $100 or pounds, whatever currency it is in. Obviously, if you look trying to do currencies, it would be the currency value, not your functional home currency. So if I click Save and I click OK, so I've now saved the restrictions. Say I only want to see transactions where the value is greater than $100 or pounds. If I click OK there, and you can also have something called a go-to. Now go-to is basically, if I clicked on the line on the left here, if I clicked on it and I clicked on the go-to, I can actually go straight to the vendor maintenance screen by highlighting that transaction, or actually go to the transaction detail. It depends on what kind of go-to option I've added. So I won't go into too much detail on what I go to, but I'll quickly show you. So if I okay, so so if I save this now, so I'm going to save it. So there's my, because I've created, I told it Smartlist Builder I would like to create the Smartlist underneath the purchasing module and call it GP Webinar. So it's put a GP Webinar folder underneath there, and that's basically my Smartlist. So if I click on my go-to there, and the only go-to option I've actually added, because you can add multiples if you wanted to, and I clicked on vendor, and it will take me to the vendor maintenance screen straight from the actual transaction I've highlighted. So that's the vendor or supplier ID there. If I click that, it will take me straight to that supplier or vendor record there. And like before, I could just export that straight to Excel. It's pretty quick, and you could do whatever you want with the actual Excel. As you can tell, as you can see, it's following my restrictions here, so you can't see any values that are $100 or below, hopefully. And you can sort these columns out by just clicking on the column headings like that, and you can sort them by date or whatever type it is, or value. Okay, so as before, you've got to search, and again, the search follows the rules of which fields you've got in your actual smart list. Okay, that's pretty much the basics of Smartlist Builder and how you actually use it. Of course, there are a few other things, as I mentioned before. You can create scripts to display this information. You can also publish a smart list basically through SharePoint, and if you want to get more collaboration through SharePoint. So that's the more complicated side of Smartlist Builder and creating smart lists. So if you guys have any questions, you can email us on the sales@nolandbusinesssolutions.com, and we'll collate all the questions and answer them as best as we can, or supply any more documentation if you require it, or assistance on how to get Smartlist Builder enabled on your system and how to get going using it. Or if you guys need to upgrade, we can give you more feedback on what version to upgrade and on what you need to do to actually get the newer version of Smartlist Builder on your systems. Okay, thanks everyone for attending today, and hopefully we hear from you soon. Thanks, bye.